I would like to welcome you all to Magpie Travel's founder and CEO, Christian Watts, to give us insights into generative AI and how you can use tools such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and more to help accelerate your business strategies. Interestingly enough, Christian's journey into the world of AI began with self taught YouTube sessions that has evolved into speaking on expert panels and shaping discussions worldwide. So, a true leader within the space. So, Christian, over to you.
So with children, animals, and AI, you should never do live demos. So I'm going to start with about 4 live demos to today. So let's see how this goes. So a little bit random, but what I'm going to do is show you sort of 3 different aspects. I'm going to go through a full presentation in a few minutes and show you about the start of AI, how it came about, who's involved, things that I think you should know about where we're going here. Nobody knows exactly where we're going, but there's certain paths I think you should be taking. But I'm going to show you sort of a few tools that can get you sort of head around how some of this stuff can work. So first, what I did, I went to Belly Star Hotel. I just took some text from the About Us page. And I'm just going to grab that. I just copied and pasted onto this doc just so I haven't got to browse. So I'm just going to now select all. I'm going to copy. And I'm going to go to Notebook LM. This is a free tool from Google. Anyone can access this. We're going to go and create a new notebook. This is kind of a collection of data. You can put all of your content in one place and do cool stuff with it. So I want to paste text. I want to paste copy text onto this. So I'm just going to paste all of that into Notebook LM. Now, Google Notebook LM has all of that data. It's kind of going through it, and it's saving it, and it's doing cool stuff with it. But what I don't want to do is create a podcast, because that's what you do, obviously, with data. This is going to take a few minutes. We're going to come back, and I'm going to play you a podcast that Google generated just now. It'll take about a minute normally, but while we wait for that to process, I'll do a quick Magpie tool. So Magpie is content management for experiences. So travel company, this is my company, and we jumped onto this generative AI trend really quickly, just over 2 years ago when ChatGPT came out. So we manage content. This is a product in Tokyo, and we have the description, the inclusions, highlights, everything from this product. So what I can do here is go to make an audio. So I've got this full product. I want to make now a little clip to send to a Japanese tour operator. So I've got this in English. I'm going to make a new audio file here. I'm just going to call it Japanese. And we're now going to create it in Japanese. What I've been told is with translating to Japanese, you can get about 90% perfect, but that's about as far as you can get. That's what they tell me. So hopefully this is good Japanese. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to generate an audio file from that. And that's also going to take just a few seconds here. And I'm going to have a file that I can play live.
Luxury 東京酒カクテルウイスキーペアリングツアー。このツアーは東京の隠れた名店や最高のバーで美味しいビール、ベー
Now half of you know that was either good or bad Japanese, but that was in real time. You can explain to the non-Japanese speakers if it was any good. I'll share a copy of that later, otherwise 20 minutes of just that. But that was just created on the spot by this Notebook LM. Amazing technology. The application of that is tough to see. Do you want to sit and make a podcast every day? But it's kind of interesting if you've got an article or something that you just want to learn and you want to go for a walk. You can just load it in on that and you can listen to it. It's quite engaging to listen to 2 people talk about the content. One more I'll show you is Sora. So this is just video, and I typed in this prompt down below here. Magpies flying above Tokyo, and this just made a video. The video's not great yet, but this took about 30 seconds to make this video above Tokyo. And this is also OpenAI. And then one last thing I'm going to show you is DeepSeek. So if any of you guys have NVIDIA shares, I apologize, NVIDIA collapsed. $500 billion this morning because of this company. So this is DeepSeek. It's a Chinese, it's the first sort of really good Chinese AI. And it recently came up with this new model, and it's excellent. So I've typed in just a quick prompt here. I'm just looking for an itinerary in Tokyo. This one does take a few seconds. It's not as quick. Well, that was pretty quick. So now this is creating an itinerary for these clients in Tokyo. And you could judge for yourselves, those that know the city, how good the prompt is, how good the results are. But it's a really short prompt. I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but I'll go into this in a few minutes, but you can really tweak these things and personalize them, make them excellent with really simple updates. So that's just going through that. It's going to come up with a complete itinerary based on this. This is free, as are most of these tools. I get overexcited by this stuff, so I'm going to keep us to maximum 3 hours for this presentation. Okay. This one's a bit weird, but these pictures, I won't play it for too long, but these are not real people. You can go to this website, I think it's called thispersonisnothuman.com or something, and it just shows you photos of people. Every few seconds it refreshes, and it's just made up people, which is a weird thing to look at when you're looking at faces and it just looks like a photo and it's just a made up person. This I'll come back to. This is just a quick prompt that I made. You can see the prompt at the top. It's, 10 words. And I think this one was in ChatGPT, and it just came up with some ways specifically for luxury travel. But I'll come back to this at the end. So this is where we are today, right? So this round of AI really started just over 2 years ago with ChatGPT. That's the first time really most people in the world really got a chance to use or to even sort of look at AI tools. This is actually old now. The latest models, depends on how you measure it. There's lots of ways to measure this stuff, but they're smarter than humans at most subjects and at most tasks, most mental tasks in the world. These two guys, I think everybody knows the guy on the left. This is Sam Altman. He's the CEO of OpenAI. OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT. Nobody heard of this guy 2 years ago. Now most people, I think, know him. When ChatGPT came out, so it was November 2022, I watched an interview. I watched lots of interviews of him, and somebody asked him, what do you think about at night? And you're expecting him to talk about pricing or about how he's going to get users. And he said, well, first, I'm worried about capitalism failing. And then you sort of think he's saying it for drama, but he's not. That's what he thinks about. And he thinks about access to these tokens and how governments are going to use it, but he's worried about this causing the end of capitalism. This is not a presentation about doom and gloom, but it's obviously there are scary aspects to what's happening. The guy on the right, Ilya Sutskever, he's the main guy behind ChatGPT. He's the smart, really smart guy. Really fascinating to watch an interview. You can tell his brain is just moving 100 miles an hour. Somebody asked him, do you think this could be the end of mankind? And he sits there and he sort of thinks, and you just know he's going through mathematical equations in his head to try and work it out. And after probably about 15 seconds, he says, yes, there's a good chance. And you know he's got a number. In his head, he's got like 19% chance or something. But he didn't come out with a number. But again, this is not all about scaring everyone today. So this is what we'll cover, just sort of a general what AI is, where it came from, who's involved, why you should care, how to use it, and where the future may be going. This all started, don't worry about these technical papers, but it was a Google paper. A lot of people at Google came up with this new kind of method of AI, which was in 2017, and that led to ChatGPT in 2022. What it means is now computers can speak, understand English. When I say English, I'll say it a lot, but I just mean human language. They can just as well understand Japanese, pick a language, they speak our language. That's the key thing when you think about the sort of face of it. Is that such a big deal, being able to speak our language? But it is, and I'll go through the reason it is, because now we can have all of this compute power, all of these computers that we can speak to and get it to do real tasks without needing developers in the middle. A couple of things, don't worry too much about these. ChatGPT. GPT is generative, it creates content. Pre-trained, it trains on, I'll go into that in a second, it trains on the world's data. Transformer, don't worry about it, it turns words into numbers and back to words, it creates data for us. LLM, if I mention that, large language model, that's an AI, that's a ChatGPT brain, it's called an LLM. Lots of different companies have them. This is how you make an LLM. So you take the world's data. So you take, the latest ones are using 10 to 15 trillion words. So you grab all that data, and then what you do is you get some chips. This is not real. This is just to confuse people. You get all these fancy chips that cost $30,000 each. You need about 100,000 of them. And then you play this game. And this is how the whole thing started. So you take all this data, 100 trillion words, 10 trillion words, and you play a game with the computer. And you say, I'm going to give you a word, you guess the next word. So on day one, Monday morning, the computers show up. One computer says, grizzly, what's the next word? No idea, potatoes, completely wrong. Gets it wrong over and over and over, but when it gets it wrong, it teaches itself the right answer. And eventually, after seeing enough words, after seeing 1 million, 10 million, 100 million words, it gets to learn what the next word is. And it's always trying to guess the next word. That doesn't sound like the way this stuff should work, but there's a lot of neuroscientists who think that's the way that humans also learn, is by kind of guessing the next word. But this is how this whole thing is built, just on this little game. Eventually, after 10 trillion words, it speaks perfect English and other languages. Now, it's best at English. The quality of each language is a factor of how much data it's trained on. So the world's data, there's most is English, then probably next is Spanish. Not sure where Chinese fits in, but the more data it's read in that language, the better it is at that language. So definitely for English, all the big European languages, the big Asian languages, it's very, very good. Then you get back to this, you have some humans go back and forth and kind of train it to deliver answers the way that humans like to see it. At the bottom here, so I changed this morning, and I would have said yesterday, if you'd asked me, I would have bet money that these things would have cost you $500 million to train. But this new DeepSeek model from China, they claim cost them $6 million. Nobody believes $6 million, but it was cheap. But that's crazy. That's why NVIDIA shares dropped by $500 billion today, because their whole future was based on people giving them billions of dollars a year to buy these chips. But now maybe you don't need them. Well, let's not worry about that. That's their problem. What you end up with is this brain, this LLM, this large language model, this brain. It knows, in effect, it knows everything. It's read everything that's ever been written right by humans. Weirdly, it doesn't remember anything. So each time you have an interaction with ChatGPT, you're brand new. Doesn't store what you said before. A lot of people are thinking, well, hang on a second, that's not the way it works. You've all done the prompt, and it kind of remembers what's above, and it keeps the sort of context. It does, but that's a hack. What the prompt's doing is sending you the previous messages in that conversation. But the fact is, it doesn't remember who you are, what you are. It's a new question to this brain. That's important. I'll get into why it's important in a minute. Actually, the gold, it's kind of unfair. People say the goldfish has a 4-second memory. It's completely untrue. Goldfishes actually can remember for up to a year. So let's stop all the goldfish shame. This is the prompt. So I think everyone's probably seen this. I imagine everyone's gone to ChatGPT and they've played around with it. So you get this chatbot, and you just type in questions or prompts, whatever you want, and it gives you a response. And that's how most of us today interact with AI. Great thing about this is no devs, no developers. So having developers isn't going to help you with everyday chatting to ChatGPT. Sometimes actually they can bring you backwards. What this stuff is really good at is just human language. So being able to speak good English, good Japanese, whatever you speak, is the best way to interact with these things. So now all these tools that previously were only available to developers are available to all of us. So you don't need these teams of people to build software anymore. Couple little things, this is a bit technical. So the main chatbot prompt is where you're just chatting backwards and forwards, asking questions, getting answers. RAG, retrieval augmented generation, don't worry about the words, but that's when you feed it a lot of information. So that's quite an important concept. So we all work for companies, I think, and you've got a company knowledge base. You've got all the information in your company. And what you could do is feed into these models, all of your company, your employee manual, your handbooks, your travel documentation, and feed it into one place, and then ask questions of those documents. So that's an important concept, especially in business. And we're all going to end up with this, where we've got all of the company information here, and we can use the brain of the GPT, of the ChatGPT, to ask questions of our information. It's especially good when we've got these reams of internal docs that no one actually ever reads, but now you can point the AI to it and actually find the real answers that you're looking for. Chain of thought's kind of a new one. It's a difficult concept. Some people argue these things can't think. I argue they can, and you start getting into, well, how do humans think? Do we really think? Let's not get too deeply into that. But now the new models, they think. They go back and forth. You give them a plan. They go off and they sort of think about it. And they think, well, how do I go about creating this plan? So let's create a luxury travel company in Tokyo, and it's going to go off and think, well, first thing I need to do is create a business plan. Next thing I need to do is go and get a business license. And it's coming up with this whole plan behind the scenes. then it can go back and it can do step by step. So this is the new part of AI where they can take on much more complex tasks. And this stuff's moving really quickly. And this is where it gets kind of scary because it can really take on not full jobs, but a lot of the tasks that we do from day to day, it can really do complex tasks now. These are the players. So it's all the big tech companies. I live in San Francisco. Most of these are from San Francisco. So OpenAI is in San Francisco. They're partnered with Microsoft. They're the ones that kind of started all of this. Gemini is Google. So each of these tech companies has their own LLM. They have different names. They try and confuse us all. Lots of different versions, lots of things happening. But Gemini is Google's. Those two are generally seen as the best two models. Anthropic is kind of a split from OpenAI. Llama by Meta, so Llama, Facebook, they have their own open source model. And then DeepSeek is the new one, which just came out with this new model very recently from China. Mistral is French. Who knew that the French could do technology, but it's actually quite good. Any French people? Yes. 2, 3. Congratulations, a tech company from France. I think it's really good, but I think they kind of run out of money. I'm not sure, but and then Perplexity. I'll talk about Perplexity in a little while. Perplexity is kind of a search engine. It's kind of an AI-first search engine. I'm sure a few of you guys have used it, which are really taking on Google head-to-head. So potentially this is where search ends up, where you've got kind of an AI search in the background and a normal search in the foreground, and it pieces it all together. But Perplexity is making a lot of moves. And they want to buy TikTok, even better, yeah. Let's not get into politics now. I could also go for 3 hours on that. Let's not go into all of this, but people spend hours researching these things and working out which one's the best, and this one is better than a PhD at physics, and this one outcompetes these humans at that. That's kind of the general leaderboard. So Gemini is Google, is Gemini #1 now. ChatGPT is behind it, but DeepSeek, this new one, came straight in at #4, and that's the one that just came out. And it is really good. So AI is not good for everything. It fails at many tasks. A couple of things they really are not good at. Hallucinations. I think everyone knows this. Hallucinations, it makes things up. It lies. It just gives you stuff which is not true. It's a fact. It's a problem with these things. It's probably the biggest problem with these things. It's always trying to guess the next best word, which is weird when you're doing sort of essays. But if you ask it something simple like the best 100 things to do in Tokyo, no problem. It's got 500 things to do in Tokyo. It'll do a really good job. If you ask it for the top 100 things to do in the village 270 miles north of here, in the middle of nowhere, where there's actually nothing to do, it'll come up with 100 things, but there's actually only 2 things, so it'll just make up 98. It'll tell you there's a museum of art and there's a world-famous bridge and all this that just doesn't exist. So it's far better now than it used to be a couple of years ago, but it's still the biggest problem. So anything you're doing with AI, you have to check your results, because this can happen with any application to do with AI, which is obviously a big problem and potential liability. So check everything. Current information, it's better now. These things are pre-trained up to a date, so they'll train on data up to, say, the 31st of January. You ask it a question today, who won the football match yesterday? It doesn't know. It wasn't trained on that. Now it's a bit of a hack, because now they go off and search for that. They just search the internet and grab that information. But the actual models themselves were just trained up to a certain point in time. That was a fairly big problem at the start of AI, but now they can search in real time. Most people don't even know the difference. It can search and find all the answers. Numbers, they're surprisingly bad at. Everyone just assumes that computers are excellent at numbers and can do, because calculators can, and they're 50 years old and no problem. But they're trained on words, not numbers. So if you want to do calculations, complex calculations, use a calculator or Excel. And if you want to do stuff with AI and words, use AI. Well, they're very good at speaking language, understanding. It knows everything within reason. Infinite patience, this is critical. And they don't complain, and no lunch breaks. So these things can work 24 hours a day in the background, and you can ask it the same question over and over and over, tweak it a bit, know a bit more of that, a bit more of that, things that a human eventually will come back and probably punch you if you ask them so many times, but this thing, it'll keep going. So text ideas. The sky's the limit with this stuff. So one of the first things I did soon after ChatGPT, so I spent a lot of my career as a tour operator in San Francisco. I ran the double-decker buses in San Francisco. And I thought, in my career, I thought, okay, if there's one sort of legacy, if there's one thing I'm the best at in the world, it's hop on, hop off buses in San Francisco. I'm the guy. I know everything about it. I've spent all this time, and my head's full of all this cool stuff. And then on the first day, I asked it to build a business plan to run a double-decker bus tour in San Francisco. And it came up with a page like that. And I'm reading it. I'm thinking, that's everything that I know about this business. And it's never heard of me or anything else. It knows everything about the business. And it would have taken us weeks or months with a whole team of people to come up with a plan that good on something that I was one of the best few people in the world at. So business plans, it's really good. Blogs and articles, that's the easy stuff. Generate a blog article about this. Blog articles, it's questionable how useful they are today, but you can easily make that kind of stuff. Product descriptions is something we do at Magpie. We make descriptions for OTAs, for experiences products. Summarization, it's really good. Taking lots of data and compiling it into a small summaries so you can go through lots of data and summarize it. Chatbots, you've seen everywhere. The chatbots are the way of the future. These chatbots have access to all of the tools with AI and your company information behind it. This is probably the biggest impact so far, certainly in travel, probably in AI in general, just replacing all of these humans on chat and customer service. And they're getting really good. Email responses, it's very easy to create an email response now with a long RFP or something. You could click a couple of buttons and create a response. I do push back on all of this stuff. If you're acting as a human, I think we all act as humans, but if you're a human and you're responding to other humans, there's an expectation that it's you writing emails and sending messages. I think you got to be really careful. So not just that it's going to hallucinate, but you don't want to get caught out with this really special client finding out that you've written a whole thing in AI and you haven't spent the time. So I think that goes without saying, but just it's worth talking about. I think there's an expectation that if you're writing as a human, you're writing it yourself. It's fine if you send AI content, but I think there should be a disclosure to say, by the way, I've created this whole itinerary. I used AI to help because it's really good, but I didn't write this myself. Review responses is something we talk about a lot as well. We create automatic review responses. Data compression. So I like this slide because it sounds really boring and everyone thinks data compression, and my wife hates it when I talk about data compression. But what these things do really is take lots of data. We've got the world's data, 10 trillion words, and they compress it. So we can now take a document of 100 pages. This came up in politics in the US. The US passes these bills always at last minute before they shut the government down. And they have 6 hours to read 1,000 pages or the government's going to shut down. But now they could take 1,000 pages and summarize it. And you can ask the GPT, you can say, listen, here's 1,000 pages of legal docs. Tell me the 10 things I should be worried about if I'm a politician and I'm worried about spending on this, or I'm worried about cutting on this, and it can summarize all of that data. The other thing about data compression is we spend a lot of our lives, most of our lives maybe, on a laptop or a phone, and you're passing information back and forth. So if you think about when you wake up in the morning, obviously you open your Instagram and see how many followers you got and all this stuff, and you're looking at data. Then you read a blog post. Let's talk about marketing. You read a how to TikTok blog post. You're traveling to work, you listen to a podcast all about marketing and these ideas in travel, you get to work, there's a marketing meeting. You say, hey, I just learned all this stuff about TikTok, we should do a campaign. And another person says, well, I know about, we're all collecting data, we're listening, we're reading, and we're compressing that data. So when we get to the meeting, 2 hours of data in my head, I've just compressed and I've told somebody a 30-second summary. Then the other people are hearing your summary, taking that away, passing it to the next person, and we just pass this information around in circles until eventually somebody does something with it and launches a campaign or sends an email or something. But this is all we do all day is pass words back and forth. And now we have a tool that can do that better than us. So that's kind of a scary thing. When we thought AI was going to change the future, we thought it was going to be the factory jobs and the robots and all these things that changes. But now this has completely shifted to all of the people that sit on a laptop for a living. The other thing this stuff can do is multimodal. So multimodal just means different types of content. So it can easily do text to image, type in a prompt, create an image. I'll show you some of those in a minute. Image to text, take a photo, tell me what I'm looking at. Text to audio, we just did. Audio to text. Text to video is really coming on strong now. You can create videos with a single prompt. And then video to text, give it a movie, tell me what happened in 42nd minute of this movie. These are just some examples. With text and video and this kind of thing, you get big fails quite a lot. You have to do a lot of back and forth and tweaking. And sometimes, like on the right, this is a really good photo. You could probably publish. On the left was obviously a fail of trying to do an influencer photo. This is me messing around a while ago. This is me kind of making a diagram of a really complicated looking sort of website and lots of complicated arrows, and then asked it to make a website on the right. 4 seconds later, it's made a website of that diagram. Very easy for the AI these days. One of these bridges is in Newcastle in the UK, which is where I'm from, and one of them is in Sydney. You all know the Sydney one, no one knows the Newcastle one. The AI knows the difference between them. This is interesting. So I've got these sunglasses. They're here somewhere. I think I put them back in my bag. These are Meta sunglasses. They have the camera. They have audio. They can speak to you. Pretty interesting for travel. I'm walking through Paris looking at the Eiffel Tower. That's an easy one, but it can tell you what you're looking at. And then can you tell me the history of what I'm looking at? Can you tell me a story about what I'm looking at? Back to data compression. So what I just told you about data compression. So now this thing can see what you see. If you wore these glasses all day, it hears what you hear. All of your senses that are in your brain today, this stuff can do. So potentially it could record your day and feed all that into the model, and it could then summarize anything you might need. It can remember anything you need. That's real data compression. That's your whole life in an LLM now. I don't know if anyone watches Black Mirror, but this is the kind of the future stuff that gets a little bit scary, and that's where we are today, potentially. Agents, so it's all about agents these days. An agent is quite a broad concept. It's just an AI that does something else. So it's with the chatbot, you're back and forth, but an agent, you go off and give it a task. OpenAI came out with that agent on Friday. It's called Operator. Now you give it a task. You say, go and book me hotels for the next week in Japan, 3 nights in Tokyo, 2 nights in Kyoto, a couple of nights Mount Fuji, make sure they're 5 stars, whatever. It goes off and it'll browse the internet. It'll search, it'll browse, it'll find the sites, it'll summarize, it'll look through. It's looking at what you're looking at. So what they do is it's image to text. So literally the AI is taking screenshots of each website. It's looking at it, thinking, okay, it's a 5-star hotel, looks very nice. I'll choose this one. It looks for the book now button, clicks that, looks for the calendar, clicks that. It does all of these tasks. Takes a while. Half an hour later, you've got potentially a full booking of hotels. I don't think we're quite there yet because you're going to have questions along the way. And it doesn't need to go end to end and be completely autonomous, but we're at the point now where it can be. And you can make restaurant bookings using the same. You can think of any task you like, and it'll just go off, and it'll do all the research. It'll come back, and it'll give you the results, either the restaurant booking or the hotels, or here's an itinerary. It can use APIs. It can use other tools. It can do anything you want. So this is the future of where we're going. And this really just started a few days ago with OpenAI's Operator. Last weird thing, they did this with monkeys, so on the top, and they did this with humans as well. So on the top, they put all these sensors on the monkeys or human head, and they showed them pictures. And your brain waves will do things depending on what you're looking at. And they record those brain waves. They record the electrical currents in your brain. Then they put you in a room, and they put the same sensors back on, and they show you the same pictures, and they try and guess what you're looking at just with the brain waves. And the bottom row here is what the computer guessed you were looking at by how your brain was acting. So this is brain reading right now. You'd have to walk around with sensors all over your brain and everything for this to work, but it's pretty scary that you can train on brain waves as well. And I say that I think it's kind of funny because I walk around with these Ray-Ban Metas, which have probably got sensors to read my brain, and Meta's trying to read everything, but let's not worry about that. So it's here. It's not going to stop. This stuff is moving with or without everyone. Some people like to think, oh, this is not going to affect me, and I'll worry about this in another couple of years. But it's here. It's in our industry. It's in your niche in the industry. Your competitors are using it. Your clients are using it. It's not going to go away. This is a large part of our future, whether you like it or not. It's going to integrate into everything, and agents really are the future. So some tools. Let me just check on how we're doing for time. I'm going to go quickly through some tools, and I'm happy to share this at the end. There's a million tools. This is tools in 2023, and these are the tools now. None of that's true. That's just completely made up. This was actually marketing tools from 10 years ago, but it's the same concept. There's a million tools that you can use. Every company in San Francisco is making AI tools. I think you should spend 90% of your time on ChatGPT or something similar. Just on the simple text prompt, you can get most of what you need to get done. I know everyone's got different tasks and different reasons to interact with this stuff, but there's a lot of tools that will confuse you and complicate your life. Mostly just the ChatGPT or Gemini or DeepSeek, if you like, using one of these models. So where to start? Lots of written content. I'll do some quick examples on this, but I'll go through prompts. So prompts is when you're talking to the chatbot, right? It's an instruction to the chatbot. And it's called prompt engineering. There's a certain way to talk to it, and there's a certain way not to talk to it. So speak to it like it's a human assistant. Someone's new in the office. They've just shown up. You want them to do, let's just use an easy one, to create an Instagram post. Just explain to them what you want. You want to do an Instagram post of some new attraction that you went to in Tokyo. You want it to market to these kind of people. You want it to show this kind of thing on the picture. Just tell it exactly what you want, and it will give you a result. Then you can tweak it and change it and add to it. Be very clear and specific. No need for fluff. It's weird, but if you say please to these things, it gives you a better result. Weird thing, but true. But you don't need fluff. You don't need extra language. Content, give it examples. It's really good if you've got previous examples. Maybe an RFP example, if you're doing an RFP for a client and you've done previous sort of itineraries before, feed it those. So listen, I'm doing an itinerary for Kyoto, and I need to create this whole sort of PDF. Here's one that I did last year from this other town. Here's one I did for the same client in London. Use the same structure, use the same sort of language, go, and it'll make that sort of format in exactly the same as the example you gave it. Specify the format. These things can spit out lists, CSVs, Excel docs, long format, small form, anything you want. Just tell it what you want. Do you want an essay? Or do you want a summary? Do you want bullets? Do you want whatever you want? One question at a time. Don't give it too much. Think of it when you have a meeting at work. You don't go to 1 hour meeting and say, okay, here are the 10 questions we're going to deal with today. Let's go. You do one at a time and cover it off. It'll do much better if you do one thing at a time and let it finish. And then be really explicit. You could be a little bit more sort of, not rude with the LLM, but it's not a human, so you can tell it exactly what you want. More of this, less of this, try again, and keep iterating with it. So written content, these are some of the tools, some of the ideas you could do. Again, ChatGPT and Gemini are the main tools that I go to. This is just something we do on Magpie. Take a really poor description, badly written, nobody spent the time on it. It doesn't need much to go on. And we've built the tools behind the scenes. They listen, just make this, make it better to read, make it more likely to sell, more likely to convert, et cetera, et cetera. It'll take it and run with it and give you excellent descriptions. Social posts, I asked it to make a campaign. I think this was for a launch of a food tour. And it's really creative. This is your marketing meeting where you've all thrown in ideas of what you're trying to create with this itinerary, and it's thought of all the ideas. It's read everything. So there's nothing it hasn't seen before, and just ask it for the creativity, and it'll come up with it. Business planning and marketing, I talked about that. Give it your business plan, even give it your budget if you want, and ask it to come up with more ideas and more thoughts about what you should be paying more attention to or less attention to. Treat it like a sort of assistant, especially in voice mode. I don't know if everyone's using voice mode, but I treat mine just like I go for walks and we chat for hours. And it's really good. You can have a conversation about anything you want and go as deep as you like, and it'll go deep into your business. It understands more about your business. It doesn't, but it can speak like it understands your business. And just have a chat, ask it for ideas. This was the business plan I talked about earlier. Concept here is start broad, come up with a sort of broad business plan, and then narrow down. Now my marketing plan, now let's come up with some marketing tactics. and drill down. And if you end up in social posts, that's fine. But if you whatever you need to do, but have it be your sort of thought companion. Just some examples here. I won't go into that in too much detail. Okay, this I asked it to just create a tour in Tokyo, Shogun tour. There's a friend of mine I was out with last night. They're creating a Shogun tour, a Shogun history tour of Tokyo. I know Shogun wasn't here and wasn't made here, but thank you. But you can still do a Shogun tour here, I think. And just I'll go through this quick, but it gave me a full itinerary. I wanted it to give me some ideas of challenges and puzzles along the way, make it more interactive. Comes up with them all, gives me some pricing ideas. And this is just another quick sort of itinerary on what to do during this conference. Same on DeepSeek, so it gave me ideas for me and ideas for my wife while I'm at the conference. Communications chatbot. Hotels, the big hotel brands, I think you all know, are using these chatbots now. They all should be if they're not, but these are really good, fed with the hotel data, right? Fed with whatever that customer service agent uses to train on, which they never actually read, that 100, 200 pages. You feed it to the chatbot, and it reads it and follows all of the regulations. Not that easy, because they trip up and they make mistakes, but this is where it's all going. And then multimodal, lots of different modes of available. 2 of these are AI, 2 of them are human. You can probably just about make out which one's which, but it's not that easy to tell the difference anymore. And these are just me messing around with stuff in Tokyo. You have to mess around with these. That doesn't look very realistic, but be an interesting experience. Sorry? I use ChatGPT for that, yeah. Bing as well, but Bing's kind of the same. And these are just ideas of iterating. Add a flag, add some water, add some sharks, whatever. And I'll just sort of finish on this area. This is so you'll see this everywhere now. Whatever tool you use, if you're Google, Microsoft, whatever you use, you're getting all these pop-ups that AI this and use this tool and lots of noise. I'd say try them all. Don't get overwhelmed with it. And a lot of times I still go back, even though Google can now take an email and search and respond within Gmail, I don't really use it for email, but if it did, I would go back to ChatGPT and just type it in there. This stuff's coming, but it takes a little bit of time for it to learn your sort of way of doing things. Yeah.
At what point should we consider doing like the paid version of ChatGPT?
Yeah, the paid version is $20 a month. It's obviously different in different countries. I do the paid version. It's only $20 a month. I'd say if you haven't started already, start with the free version. When you get into a bit of a heavier user, upgrade to the 20. I think for images you need the paid version, that kind of thing. So I think whenever you start being a regular user, it's good to have the upgrade. Yeah. So the question, yeah, and there's developer tools on all of these. They all have APIs available. On the API, you pay as you go. So you connect it and you pay for tokens as you use them, which is how these big companies are using it. And it's very easy to build an API into these things, but it's kind of out of the scope of this. But yeah, it's $20 a month for the paid one. That you're always getting the latest version with that. I am going to go through this really fast just for 1 more minute. Google Advanced with deep research. This is one you can give it a task. You can ask it to find all the 5-star hotels in Tokyo and find the ones with the rooftop bar, with restaurants in the property, ones that have at least 7 floors that overlook some trees that I can see Mount Fuji. No problem. Off it goes. It'll come back. This takes about 5 minutes. And it'll come back with a list of all these hotels with all of these parameters you gave it. And same with ChatGPT. You can do these tasks now, give them these sort of, it's got tasks, it's got project. You can have it do more complex tasks. There's another list it came up with. And then Perplexity, last one I'll mention, is kind of a half search engine, half AI. But again, it can go off and it can do search for you. It can come back and give you results. It can save this stuff on the side to do future work, all kinds of options with it. So I'm going to stop there because I want to go to questions, if we have any. And I'll just leave it on this, just to sort of, for any talking points.
Thank you, Christian. That was very insightful. We do have time for a quick, short Q&A. So if you would like to raise your hand, I will pass the mic over to you.
When using like these tools, because I've used ChatGPT before, what's the best way to better get accuracy? Because I've even tried to ask it within my field, like something I already know very well, and it's wrong sometimes. So what's the best way to kind of prevent? Is there a way to tell it to do research on X hotel and then answer the following? Is there anything like that, or what do you suggest?
Yeah, there are sort of tips. Number one is knowing when it might make something up. So, which is weird because how would you know? But you can't tell it to speak the truth. It doesn't understand the concept of speaking the truth, which is weird. But it's sort of knowing what it is. And that's why I start with how these things are trained, because you know now that it was trained on this certain amount of data. If you get really niche into your particular company, it doesn't know. So then you get expected to just make something up. So, but getting summaries of things first is a good idea. So getting to do the lists of hotels first, then dig in and do that kind of thing. It'll give it some sort of framework. But I think it's hard to explain because it's when you use it a lot and don't use it as an answer engine, it's not meant for giving you answers to a question. It's meant to generate content, if that makes sense. Probably didn't answer that very well, but it's quite sort of nuanced how to. I think the more you play with it, the more you learn where it might go wrong.
I think you mentioned like it doesn't really remember like other things. So even if I told it to research in a sense, like
right.
Really.
Yeah, it doesn't remember, right? So if you've done a whole research project and you think it's kind of training on what you're giving it, it's not. It's forgotten it all again. So you go back the next day, you can keep the prompt on the side and you can keep that thread, but if you start elsewhere, it's the actual model has forgotten everything.
Does anyone have?
Just to complement what you said and what the lady said is that the paid version gives you the option to describe yourself, who you are, what you do, and this is embedded in the language model. So it knows who you are and what you do. So the replies are skewed towards your self and your business model in the paid version.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, it is.
So it remembers who you are and what is your profile. So you say, I'm a luxury design based in this, and these are my clients. It will always remember that. So always the answers will be towards your specific profile.
Yeah, absolutely. And the tool I used at the start, that Notebook LM, is one example of a kind of an agent. And that's where you can upload multiple docs to that, or videos, or text, and you can save. There's lots of different versions, but you can put in your personal data, not personal data, but your personal information. What you're trying to do here: I'm a hotel. This is my property. This is what we're trying to achieve this year, and you can save that in the kind of the tool. It doesn't save it in the model, but then every time you ask a question, it knows exactly what you said. It knows that this is your company, this is your goal, and it'll use that context to answer the question.
We have a question here at the back from Betsy.
So, as you know, there's a lot of people have already proclaimed that SEO is now dead. So the next the next phase is AI search. So everyone's not even using Google search anymore. Everyone's using ChatGPT. So given that, what do you think in order for us, so organic search through SEO and the algorithm that's no longer valid at this point or at this stage, what can we do as businesses, like just to get, instead of SEO, to get found on ChatGPT? Because now everything is not word search, it's more like phrases. Like, how do I create an itinerary? It's no more like Japan 10-day itinerary or whatever. It's really now dominated by phrases and questions. So my question to you is, how do we go beyond SEO at this point and try to find the next new algorithm for ChatGPT?
I always think back to how we search. You know, we've all been Googleized. Let's think of whatever. We've all been trained on Google over the last 20 years, and we know how to type in searches into Google. And that's not necessarily intuitive, right? We type in 2, 3, 4 words at a time into Google, and we understand what results, then we click off. But I think if you're booking a trip to Tokyo, What is it you think when you're booking that trip? And I think it's like you said, it's the long tail keywords. So in my head, I'm not thinking Tokyo, hotel, Shibuya, this. I'm thinking, I kind of want to stay in a nice hotel, maybe in a busy part of town with some restaurants around and maybe a place where, that's a search. That's a new search, right? And you can actually search with that now. That's not going to pull up a search, like you said, on an OTA or on a hotel website. I've looked a lot of the hotel websites for this conference, and they're not very text heavy because we've all been told to use images over the last 20 years. But you need to get that text onto your website because people are going to be searching for these long tail words, and they want to know specifics. I want to stay at this level, overlooking this with, bring my kids, and not this, and not too busy, and no traffic, and no roadworks, and that's a search now. So the easy way to store a lot of that is just FAQs. Obviously, get it on your homepage and some critical information, but you can only put so much text on your homepage, and you've still got humans looking at it, so you don't want to have reams of docs on your homepage. But I think about FAQs, whereas before, you might have 5 or 10 FAQs, and let's just use the example of a hotel website with the common FAQs, that's why they're called FAQs. Now I would put 100 or 200 on there of all the long tail stuff that people only ask once a month. But those searchers now will find it, and they'll find the rooftop bar with the view because it was in an FAQ. And there's not a lot of good rules now, but I think that is going to be a way of the future. It still needs to find that content somewhere. And whoever is supplying it on the website, it will find you, hopefully.